Greetings, dear viewers. How are you doing? If you woke up today thinking the world was stable, this episode is about to gently escort you back to reality. On today's show, a president is shopping for islands, a political party is arguing with its own bloodline, and trees are getting more hugs than you 3 weeks to Valentine's. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hold My Mic, and my name is Oburu. You already know what I'm about to say next. Drop the beat!
Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Yo, hold my mic. Hey, hold my mic. Hold my mic. Hey, hold my mic. Hold my mic.
Now, the Orange Democratic Movement, that is ODM, is on the headlines for the wrong reasons again. And this week, they added just a little bit of family drama on top. Now, here is what went down. Now, this past Sunday, the late Raila Odinga's children, Winnie Odinga and Raila Odinga Jr., well, they held a rally in Kibra in what seemed to be like an attempt to channel the next generation of ODM leadership and to challenge them. They showed up just a few days after their uncle, Dr. Oburu Odinga, my brother, who is the current ODM party leader, held his own rally at the exact same place. Now, Winnie is seen by many as part of the rebel faction of ODM, which also contains the likes of Secretary General Edwin Sifuna Atawatafuna and Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Wajawabu Owino. Not only does this faction have a problem with the way the ODM party succession was handled after Raila's death, well, they also seem to hold great reservations about ODM potentially entering into a coalition agreement with UDA and supporting President William Ruto for a second term in 2027. And so when Winnie took that microphone on Sunday, she shot everything on sight. Yes, even her uncle.
Wanaongea sana na tukiuliza maswali wanasema tutoke kwenye chama. Tukitoka watabaki na nani kwenye chama? Chama ni ya wananchi. Tukitoka wananchi wanaenda.
Pause that thought. Think about it, because this wasn't just another ODM rally. This was Winnie Odinga's first proper public reemergence in a long while, and she did not come back quietly. Now, no warm-up, no, let me first start by thanking the elders, none of that. She walked onto the stage like someone who had been watching from the balcony, taking notes, underlining sentences, and finally said, all right, my turn.
Nataka watu wajue, Baba was one in a million. Hatutampata mwingine. Na vile vile, hauwezi copy-paste Baba. Huwezi copy-paste the greatest leader Kenya has ever seen. Ati unabadilisha na huyu, ati sasa tuko na Baba. No, haiwezi kuwa hivyo.
Now that was a direct memo, addressed, stamped, and delivered straight to Uncle Oburu's desk. Suddenly, ODM's internal debate stopped sounding like policy disagreements and started sounding like a family dinner where someone finally mentions the inheritance. You know how we normally sweep things under the rug? Not this one. Now, Dr. Oburu Odinga, on the other hand, has been touring the country, preaching unity, calm, and party unity. Where Winnie brings fire, Oburu brings chamomile tea. Where Winnie says, we need legitimacy in a fresh mandate, Oburu says, relax, nobody is being chased, but ODM is big enough for everybody. And to his credit, Oburu has been very measured, almost painfully calm. He has consistently insisted that ODM remains united, that differences are normal, and that working with government is about stability, not surrender. But Kenyan politics has taught us something very, very important. When rallies start overlapping, then it's only a matter of time before there are casualties.
If anybody wants a divorce, it will be messy, it will be noisy, and it will not be easy.
But before that day arrives, here comes Ruth Odinga, carrying a lot and also the family broom. Ruth stepped in like the auntie who hears noise from the living room and says, everyone relax, nobody's fighting, sit down. Then gets up to handle it alone. She reminded the country that debate is actually the Odinga family's culture, that disagreements are not divorce, and that differing views do not mean the house is on fire. The Jaramogi family clan elders also backed that up, saying there is no division, no civil war, no splitting of plates, just conversation, loud conversation, on microphones, in public rallies, totally normal.
Whatever is happening, whatever is going around the social media, those are just rumors. And we take them as speculations and things which people are getting out of hand. In the Odinga family, I want to tell you straight forth that I'm representing Right Honorable Oburu as the elder and as the face of the Odinga family. There is no crack in the Odinga family. We as the Odinga family, we are united since the late Jaramogi left us 32 years ago. And as you know, we are celebrating the 32nd anniversary of the late Jaramogi. So I want to make it clear that there is no crack. We as the Odinga family, we are very much united and we are talking in one language.
So now here is where we are. Winnie Odinga has returned to the political scene with bars, not pleasantries. Oburu Odinga is preaching unity while quietly dodging familiar blows. ODM is debating succession, coalitions, and 2027 all at once. And the Odinga family insists this is not drama, just very loud democracy. If this were a family WhatsApp group, someone would already be typing, "Can we please take the discussion offline?" Tuongee pale nyuma ya tent. But this is Kenyan politics. Nothing goes offline. Everything gets a rally. And as for ODM, the orange may be intact for now, but someone has clearly squeezed it, and the juice is spilling everywhere. Moving on to today's episode of What's Our Favorite Neighbor Up To? The Republic of Uganda, ladies and gentlemen, where President Yoweri Museveni was this week declared the official winner of the presidential election. Yes, that same man who has been in power since 1986 gathered 71.6% of the vote and now heads into his 7th term, 40 years into the job. Museveni's main challenger, former pop star turned politician Bobi Wine, however, did not lose quietly. First, security forces raided his home a day after the election while the counting was still actually going on. They cut power, they blocked every exit, and effectively placed his compound under siege, or siege, with journalists told to keep their distance, except for Larimado. Luckily, Bobi Wine escaped the raid and has been on the run ever since, living somewhere in Uganda, constantly on the move and being looked after by common people.
My wife and I have been under house arrest since the 15th of January when we had elections. And yesterday, our house was raided by some police officers together with a number of other unknown individuals in plain clothes. They used ladders to climb over our fence. They cut off our electricity. They cut off our cameras. And they were being assisted by a helicopter that was hovering in the sky of our compound and providing them light as they were doing what they were doing. Amidst that raid, I was able to use my skills and escape my house. But I know they're looking for me.
Meanwhile, those inside his home, including his wife and relatives, are still under house arrest, unable to come or to go. And then things got even worse. In quite possibly the wildest statement ever made by a military boss, Muhoozi wrote that the Ugandan army had already killed 22 members of Bobi Wine's NUP party, whom he branded terrorists. He then went ahead to boast that he was praying that the 23rd kill is Bobi Wine himself. I know, it's crazy. Yep, public service announcements, folks. Contesting in an election is not the same as committing acts of terror, unless it's Uganda and someone with a general's name and unlimited Twitter access says it. Surprisingly, the internet was not shut down. Then there was the matter of the internet shutting down during the election, but not during his tweets, which quite frankly has become almost normal at this point, but only in Uganda and Tanzania. Ugandan authorities insisted that the outage wasn't to manipulate the vote or hide anything. Oh, no, far from it. They claimed it was because the undersea internet cable off the coast of Mombasa was interfered with, causing a genuine technical problem over there when people were still wearing their clothes. I swear, I'm not making this stuff up. Absolutely not.
Internet, initially UCC said they had switched off, probably for security reasons. But then the latest I'm getting from my friends in Mombasa, a ship was passing by, it hit an internet cable into two. So they are trying to locate the other piece to connect it.
That one, by the way, is the Ugandan Minister for Youth and Children Affairs. Meanwhile, protests broke out after results were announced, and over 100 opposition supporters were charged with various offences. Of course, Bobi Wine rejected the official results. He called them fake and alleging widespread fraud, including accusations of ballot stuffing and intimidation of voters and polling agents. Now, I only have one question. Is Uganda actually a country or just a political experiment that stopped following the rules halfway through? Anyway, I guess congratulations to President Yoweri Museveni on another term. One more chapter in a leadership story that began before some of his voters were even born. And to Bobi Wine, somewhere out there, still speaking, still resisting, still proving that in Uganda, opposition politics isn't just a campaign, it's a survival sport, because when power lasts this long, elections stop being about choice and start becoming about how much chaos it is into one ballot cycle. That's Uganda. Same script, new injuries, roll the credits. All right, world, from one dictator to another polished and shiny one. Here is the story that's about international intrigue and strategic territory, as well as accidental geography. This is that kind of lesson. I'm talking about US President Donald Trump and the Greenland saga, the global drama that has economic forums, NATO members, and stock markets all scratching their heads like someone explaining M-Pesa to a herd of goats. So, what exactly is happening? Well, brace yourselves, I'm about to explain it in a way that even he can understand. This week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Trump reignited a story so wild it sounded like global diplomacy being discussed at a jaba kibana pale Meru. Si uteme jaba kwanza.
Labda ukitema jaba utaongea vizuri.
Acha kuniambia vile nitafanya ndugu yangu. Utakosana mimi na vile hujaiona, ona.
He openly pushed for the US control over Greenland, a massive Arctic island that belongs to Denmark, saying America must own it because of strategic security is huge. Greenland, and no, he didn't threaten military force this time. Apparently that's off the table, but he certainly revived the economic pressure cooker approach by threatening tariffs against European allies who didn't agree. Here's the fun part. Trump claimed that the United States was unwise to give away Greenland after World War II, an argument that was not only dumb, but also an insult to geography.
All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them.
And if that wasn't enough, Trump, in front of world leaders, confused Greenland with Iceland. I mean, you gotta get this thing right if you're gonna complain, sir.
The last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money.
Yes, while advocating for the US to take over one frigid island, he referred to another frigid island entirely, more than once. That's like planning a trip to Nakuru and booking flights to Kisumu City. Instead, Trump even threatened tariffs starting at 10%, rising to 25% to 8 European nations, including Denmark, the UK, Germany, and France, unless they agreed to negotiate on Greenland. Basically said, give it to us or we tax you, which many European diplomats politely translated as a tantrum and decided that two can play at that game. And so they threw a tantrum of their own as well. The European Parliament paused work on a US-EU trade deal in protest against Trump's tariff threats. Now, eventually, Trump blinked first. After meetings with the NATO chief Mark Rutte, he announced a framework of a future deal on Greenland at Davos, and he threw those tariff threats into the recycling bin and said there would be no use of force.
We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
So, what's really going on? Greenland is a semi-autonomous Danish territory, not a US supermarket, and Denmark has repeatedly made it crystal clear that Greenland isn't for sale. Analysts say Trump's fixation on Greenland is less about the ice and more about critical minerals in its Arctic positioning between Russia and China, and a desire to put America front and center on geostrategic maps. And so the world leaders sat there in Davos, some handing out political smiles and polite smiles, others colder diplomacy. The United States stock markets took one of their worst tumbles in months, but gold prices soared through the roof because nothing says global confidence like a president debating who owns a chunk of frozen rock in public. So let's recap this one more time and let's do it real quick. A US president wants to acquire Greenland, perhaps with tariffs, maybe with NATO's blessings, but definitely without looking at a map. There you go. European allies are confused. Denmark says no thanks. Market traders are queuing for gold, and somewhere in all this, geography was kicked out of the conversation. And Iceland is wondering why it's suddenly trending in the US. All right, Kenya, tuongee juu ya miti. We need to have a serious talk about this tree-hugging madness. What started as a noble gesture has now blossomed into something that looks less like environmental activism and more like the latest national pastime, right next to complaining about the government. Now, let's go back to the beginning, to the Beninging. A young climate activist named Museveni hugged a tree for 72 hours straight, no food, no sleep, just pure embrace, to raise awareness about conservation and environmental protection. Now that moment went viral, earned her praise and even a head of state commendation, and put her in the Guinness Book of World Records spotlight. Now, she followed the record application process. Just like that, and boom. Now, Kenyans have suddenly decided that if hugging a tree for hours equals social impact, then everybody might as well hug a tree too. But here's where the plot twist started making less sense than a matatu conductor's math. First, there was a father in Kitale who clung to a tree for hours after his daughter was denied school admission for lack of fees. Yes, his vigil did draw sympathy and help, but it also landed him in the hospital with injuries because despite being given the school fees he needed, he still refused to stop hugging the tree. And so the people of Kitale took it upon themselves to exorcise the demons from his body. In Muranga, a woman set out to hug a tree for 48 hours to draw attention to her son's mental health, only to quit after 10 minutes because alikuwa amekazwa, and never mind. In Kericho, a police OCS hugged a tree to protest against gender-based violence and the youth smoking too much weed. He ended up being taken away for medical evaluation by junior police officers, maybe thinking he's smoked some of it himself.
Wazee wanapiga wamama, alafu kuna defilement, alafu kuja banki. Watoto wengi wanavuta banki, watoto wengi wanakunywa pombe. Wakati wameshikwa wazazi wamekuja kwa station, sijui saidia hii mtoto. Ukishikwa umeenda because you have to change the community. Na hiyo tutafanya pamoja na community policy. Yeah.
Anyway, one woman took it to 74 hours over corruption concerns and had to be hospitalized. A 14-year-old boy hugged a tree for 50 hours to raise money for his brother's surgery and crowdfunded a fundraiser right there in Jivanji Gardens.
3, 2, 1.
And then there was Pastor James Irungu, who tried an 80-hour marathon in Muranga to highlight cancer awareness, only to collapse at the 79th hour and get rushed to hospital. Now, before you start booking tree-hugging counselors, here's the health check. The Ministry of Health has actually warned, or more accurately pleaded with people to get medical checkups before engaging in these extreme hugging marathons. Why? Obvious, however, prolonged hugging without actual preparation is strenuous and can be dangerous. Doctors have flagged cases where people collapsed from dehydration and also fatigue. I mean, it's tiring. Look, I'll tell you what, I adore creativity. Really, anything that gets people talking about real issues without burning down buildings or starting riots is a step forward. But when hugging a tree becomes the default template for every cause, from school fees to insecurity to weed smoking, maybe, just maybe, we need a timeout. So here's what you need to know. Trees don't need hugs, they need protection policies. And if you really care about these real issues, you might want to do something that actually brings change instead of wrapping your arms around a tree. It's time to stop this madness, people. And so the next time someone tells you that they're about to hug a mango tree for 60 hours, I give you the permission to slap some common sense into them first, then tell them to go hug the area MP instead. Right, that's it for today's episode, folks. Please go outside and touch grass. Touch grass, don't hug the tree, touch grass. And remember, nothing about this show is normal. This has been Hold My Mic. My name is Oburu, and I'll catch you sometime. Please, wachana na muti. Assuming nothing explodes, I'll see you next time. Walale!
Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Yeah, yo, hold my mic. Hey, hold my mic.